he's going to kill me. He's going to leave me in the middle of nowhere.
Telling a story about my dad
and
and a
I'm going
snake.
through this whole scenario with him. And then he says, "You're stepping on a snake." And I went, "What?" And I looked down, and there is one big ass rattlesnake underneath my feet. I'm standing on it, right? And so I'm like, "Oh shit, what do I do?" You know. Well, see, he's got his gun. He's going to shoot the snake, but he needs me to leap far enough away from the snake so he can shoot it, so he doesn't shoot me, right? So I'm like, "Which way do I go?" You know, and he's that way. So I was like, "Okay." So then I was like, "What if I can't jump far enough?" Just do the best you can, because they can strike up to 6 feet or longer, twice, 2 to 3 times their length. Yeah. And we didn't know exactly how long it was, but it was this big around, right? Like big, almost as big as my skinny little wrist back then. So I did this leap to the side, and he's bam, bam, you know, like you were doing, bam, and I'm like, "Oh God." Now he's my hero. Okay, he's my hero, right?
He went from possible murderer
Yeah.
to hero.
So then the next time that now I'm visiting, this is all in the same visit. I go, he says, "Drive the Jeep." So I want to show you how to drive the Jeep in the mountains, but you know, that's like up and down. So I was like, "I don't know." And he goes, "No, I'll be right here. I'll tell you." He's got this really cool Willys Jeep, and he's just put this really heavy duty roll bar on it. And it's really cool, and he just painted it this speckly green. It looks so nice. And I'm like, "Okay." So we start up the bar hill and then all the way up into the back to go back up into the forest. And we're getting up there. I swear, we're not 20, 30 minutes out, and it starts to get steep. And so I put the clutch in. I could drive a stick. I'm putting it into granny low, right? But then it started rolling backwards. Well, there's a cliff over here and a mountain over here. And it's starting to roll backwards. And I'm like, "Oh, shit." Well, so I'm trying to get it in gear, but I'm a little panicky because it's going and then it's going and then it's going like this, right? And he's like, "Jump!" And I'm like, "Hell no!" So I hold on. It keeps rolling so that the wheels on the front on this side and the wheel on the back does this, and then it tips over. And it rolls twice down that hillside. He had jumped out, so he was all down, caught on the bush and shit. I'm in it, holding on to the steering wheel like this, white knuckling it, right? When it stopped, the seat was here, and it was still running. And it was still running. He's like, and here's what I heard. "Turn it off," right? And what he was really going was, "Sherry, turn it off!"
Because you're in slow, but
Yeah,
you're filming. I've been in a wreck before and seen all the glass.
Oh my
going
God,
across
yeah.
the-
It was like in the movies, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm holding on like this. I'm sitting in the dirt. The seat's up here. And by the time he got up there, I was still hearing, "Turn it off." So he turned it off. And then he's like, "Okay, I think we're good." Because, you know, the oil is going to come up to go to the top of the engine. And so I said, "What are we going to do? Call AAA? Who do you call?" You know, because this is
Did they even have
nowhere,
AAA back
right?
then?
Right, this is in the middle of nowhere, right? And he's like, "No," and he goes to the back, he gets in his toolbox in the back of the Jeep, pulls out his come along, hooks it up to a tree, takes the line, hooks it up to the Jeep, rolls it over, drives it back up onto the road, and I'm like, "Wow, you're my hero again." Now that's 2 times. so it was like things like that. Him and I always got into shit like that. So
You never finished the rafting story.
Oh,
Because this is important to knowing, to trust.
That was the first rafting story.
Did you finish it though? Did you finish the whole rafting
Well,
story?
I thought it. As I'm going to go to the other rafting story.
She almost drowned. Are we
Okay,
talking about the same
other
rafting story? Or is that-
later, running in one of those oval rafts with a whole bunch of guys from the Forest Service, including his brother Joe and his best friend Stan. And we're in this raft,
Oh, I'm
and
combining
I'm the
the
little
stories,
pissy
okay.
one. Every time we would hit rapids, because I weighed 100 pounds soaking wet, not even that. Every time we hit that, because they had me straddling the edge of thing instead of being sitting in it, you were straddling it so we could all paddle, and there were 6, 7 of us, and we're all paddling, and then we get to this big rapid, and then as soon as the guys ship their weight, I go out. As soon as it starts to do this, I'm out. "Okay, Sherry, tuck your knees, bounce off the rocks." So So I'm tucking my knees, which is then a time when I could get my knees up to my chest. And I hit the rocks, and then I would bounce off and go around, and they'd pick me up in the eddy. We did this several times. I just figured I'm going to be swimming most of the trip, right? But then we're coming up to what they call Dutch oven, which is like this house, and then some, like the height of this house and some. And it was spring, so it was running really
The Dutch
hard.
oven, people die. in the
So
Dutch
a
oven.
lot of people die in Dutch oven.
Yeah.
So we take the raft, and he goes, okay, we're going to be coming up on Dutch oven. We got to make sure, okay, Sherry, you got to sit over here. And I said, no, I'm not sitting over there. I think, put me on the point. When I can see it coming, I'll be able to hold on tighter. I'll know when I'm, Well, I was wrong. He was right. I would have maybe been better off inside. They were trying to take me. You're trying to take me off the crew, is what you're doing, because I just kept getting thrown in. And I was paddling good, and I was holding on with my thighs, but it wasn't enough because they were so heavy. They're big guys, and it kept foofing me out. We hit Dutch oven. We're coming up over the edge like this, and it goes like this, and it's bumpy. Boom, boom. It throws me out over the point. Joe grabbed my ankle, this one, as I'm going over. So the boat's like this, it's going down. Joe's got my ankle. I'm hanging over the edge of it, going, well, shit. Because I'm looking down a whole story, and it's like, well, I'm dead, right?
Yeah.
We hit that. It pins me underneath the boat.
Yeah.
And then it can, but Joe's got me by the ankle. And then the other guys are grabbing my other ankle so it doesn't suck me under the boat and then hold me down through the whole thing. So, but I'm still under the boat.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, damn. And then I finally get my hand up and I get a breath of air and then we bounce again. And I get a breath of air and we bounce again and we come through, get through Dutch oven. I climb up in the boat. They all help me, pulling me by my legs. Back up into the boat and I'm like, oh. Wow, that was cool. And like my ankles, both ankles, I mean, I had bruises all the way around. It was so deep. It looked like I'd been in shackles for a month because they were holding so tight so that they wouldn't lose me. But those were my, that was it. And then one time Chris and I went up here, it's probably this time of year, we would go for my birthday, we would go and hike or we would go camp. And one year we went and camped up there by Eddie Dion's place. And we were camping in a tent. And there was nobody around. And I got up and started naked, and I'm like, woo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I'm supposed to go to the bathroom and dancing and singing. And here comes the bow hunters. I'm like, morning, ma'am. Oh, yeah, hi. I was like, sure, I hope that's not any neighbors. and then the other time we went up here to Sheep Creek.
Tell me the time we got in trouble.
I get in trouble all the time.
That's what we do.
As a wasp, have you seen you? You probably leaned on him. Are you all right? You get you through your shirt. There's a wasp. Find me a thing. So we go up here, and up here on Sheep Creek, when you hike up, there's a pond, and above it's a waterfall, and it's quite a bit up. And we were taking the path. He got you, huh? It'll hurt for a little bit. It's schist rock, it's slick rock. It breaks off. And we were walking the trail, and like the whole trail part of it just fell off. And I'm like, oh shit, and I started to slide. And he yells, grab a bush. So because I fell, I'm grabbing the bush because we're talking 3 times the height of this house. I'm gonna fall down, and I'm gonna fall maybe onto the rocks and maybe into the pond. And I tried to grab a bush, and the roots started coming out. And
it's like something from a
runs
movie.
Up real quick and grabs a branch off of wherever he found and reached it down and got a hold of it. He said, all right, reach for it. And I was afraid to reach for it because I didn't want to let go of the bush. And he said, sure, if you don't reach for it, then the bush is going to let go sooner or later here. And I won't be able to get you. You'll be done. And I was like, okay. So I listened and then I did it. But I learned to not argue with him and debate with him because he had more experience than I did. And I had to learn to trust because of my life. I could not trust other people because they couldn't be trusted. They were never there to really take care of me or keep me safe. And I'd never been in the position that he had been in. So I learned to trust his experience and learned from him how to handle those situations. He never panicked. He said, you never panic. If you panic, people are gonna die. And he said, when we were in the river, I said, you know, why you were like so calm? And he goes, well, if I was going, oh my God, get her, oh my God. He said, you would have died because nobody would have gotten the right instructions. Everybody would have been panicking. Joe did exactly what he needed to do. I needed to paddle it through. If I had stopped and tried to get you, instead of letting the other guys grab you, you would be dead. Because I had to get us through the rapids. Because going through the rapids, he still had to get us around the rocks. And he was a rudder. So I learned, I guess, my point, I learned to listen. It was a hard lesson and it could have cost me my life in several different times. But I also am grateful to him in the long run. But it also makes me even more stubborn now living up here. Because up here we're pretty fancy now, you know. Back then we weren't. It was hard work every day. There was always work up here every day. You're building something, and it's
from scratch.
And it's digging your well by hand. It's digging your septic system by hand. It's doing all those things, and it's just you and two little kids and your husband. So you don't question it. You're either partners or you won't make it. And we didn't have much at all. I mean, if we had $20 extra at the end of the month that we called disposable income now, that was like, what happened? Did we forget to pay something? So that stubbornness comes from learning how to listen and stand my ground. And I had to stand my ground when I was younger to keep safe. And then when I was with him, it was the first time I could ever, I see it, it's right there. Yep. It's the first time I ever could trust anybody to have my back. And when he passed away, I think the biggest fear that I had was, it was like, who's going to have my back? Who's going to have my back? I'm bad things happen to me, to everybody. But if you've got somebody that you can completely trust, and they've got your back, and even if we didn't agree about it, I knew he loved me enough that he would not let anything happen to me, and I had to learn that, because no one in my life had loved me like that ever. That they would put their own life ahead of mine, and he did that several times. And then he saved me from sliding in, and I remember there was a storm coming in, and we barely made it back home before the lightning and it was up on the mountain up there, up by Crystal. As we were hiking it, we got lost, partly because, again, I wasn't listening. You know, I went to the left and I should have gone to the right, or whatever direction he said to go. I went the opposite, and then he had to come after me. But I wanted to get away from that waterfall because that had scared me. And so that put us away from where the road was that we needed to find. And then we ended up going over and up and over and up. And then we were like, where the heck are we? So we're trying to come back. But I haven't done that since then either. But, yeah. It was...
Rolling Jeep was the one time was good enough for you?
Yeah, I don't drive in the mountains. I would only ride with him, too. Well, Stan, his best friend Stan, took us, me, Steph, Bill, Joe, and Chris, up into the mountains in Montana and in Missoula.
When we're talking mountains, we're talking not like the mountains like where we live. We're talking how this used to be when there was only dirt roads and
nothing.
You had to have 4-wheel drive to get in during the summer.
Going up into Cherokee Wilderness, it was pretty steep and pretty. It was pretty.
Not as well kept as it is now.
And we were driving up on this mountainside, and Stan decided he wanted to go around it a certain way, and it wasn't really a road. You're just driving on the mountainside, and we're in a truck, and it's a truck like. Well, it's like my pickup, you know, it's like a cab, and he's got his gun in the back and stuff, but we're all in the truck, or is it? No, it was just a truck. So the kids were in the back, and Joey was in the back, and me and Chris and Stan were sitting in the seat, so I was in the middle, and as he got a certain way, the truck started to go over, like this, and it was like miles down. I mean, it was like, that must have been I'm going to say a 9 or 10, okay? It was high. And we were like right at the top of by the top of the tree line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all bentonite. And the truck starts to slide on the bentonite. And it starts to tip like this. And Chris says, okay, very calmly. Stan's like, oh shit, we're gonna die. You know? And Chris is like, Sherry, I want you to lean over Stan.
Okay.
And get as close to the window as you can. And Stan goes, oh yeah. You know, he's Stan, right? So I'm leaning over Stan, trying to get as close to that as I can. And Stan is leaning out the window. So we're doing this. He says to Joey in the back, Joe, I want you to climb out of the truck on that side, on the mountain side. And I want you to hold on to the truck. Get the kids to do the same thing. So we all became the outriggers. And Stan was too scared to drive the truck. Don't let my gun die. You know, he was afraid his gun was going to roll down because we were all going to just let go and let the truck go.
Mm-hmm.
And Stan goes, oh no, I don't want my truck, my gun. Chris said, you hang on, you guys all hang on to the outside of the truck. So we're hanging on to the window. And it had a running board on it. So we're all hanging on to the windows and we're outrigging like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Leaning as far as we can. He gets his foot over on top of Stan's foot so that he can hold the brake on. And then Stan climbs out the window and he's climbing, and then Chris drives us out. And I was like,
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
The man was amazing. He absolutely understood physics. He understood people.
Mm-hmm.
When we took the kids down on the Salmon River, our goal was to teach them to listen. And he said, I'm going to scare the hell out of them. And they're going to learn to listen when we say we need to do this. They're not going to argue and debate with us anymore. You're going to do it. You don't ask questions right now. You can ask me later why. But right now, you're going to do this. And that's what they were taught. So he sat all these 6 kids down and he said, we're going on the river. If I say jump out of that boat, you jump out of the boat. If I say put your paddle down and hang, dig it in, you dig it in. If whatever I say, you don't question it, you don't argue, you don't debate, you just do it. We'll discuss why later, but you do everything I tell you. You take instructions. And then of course they were all there being my kids. Well, why? Well, why? And so he explained it all to them, and then he put them in an unsafe situation that was safe enough where they learned. Because they didn't understand that when you got in a river like that, you had no footing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were thrown out of that boat, you were at the mercy of the current.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't get your feet down, and even if you did, it would still drag you.
Mm-hmm.
And it could drag you under if there's any debris or anything.
Our youngest, how old was Kathy? She was the youngest with us. Was she
Oh.
Bree's age?
She might have been 7.
7?
Because that was the year
I'm 8.
before he passed away.
Yeah.
That was 95, I think, 94, 95. And 6 or 7. And so we got the kids in the boat, and so we did things that did just that. It threw them out of the boat. And they had to tuck. They had to dig in. They had to learn how to get to the eddy where it was safe. We didn't take them in any big rapids, but we treated it as though it was.
Yeah.
And the boat would flip. We did it all. And I'll tell you what, they didn't question it.
Uh-huh.
They didn't argue. They didn't debate. So they learned that in a crisis, someone takes control. You have to trust that person in control. If you don't, you won't listen to them. People will die.
Mm-hmm.
If you trust them, then that person will get you through it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have built a trust up to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hardest part, because I would never have made it through if I had not built those kinds of trusts up over time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, David's like that. David's stubborn, and he knows everything about doing that kind of thing. But he was not wanting to listen when he was little either.
Mm-hmm.
He was a little kid. He thought he knew it all. Well, he learned to listen to his dad because he went in, and there he goes. And of course, Chris got down river fast, and he could catch him. But he got far enough down where he could scare him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, oh shit, I'm going to go down this river forever. Same with Kathy. I think Kathy and Starla was the worst. She would not listen.
Yeah.
And she had to have it done over and over and over and over again to get her to listen and do what he said, so that she didn't get thrown out of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd make sure every time.
I was good. I don't think I ever got thrown out of the boat.
She's
Maybe once.
she's stubborn the other way. Where's that hornet at? Is it up there? Oh, I see.